Welcome to Late Night Discussions with Tina Mo from the Tina Mo for Show YouTube page. This is the space where we take things hidden behind darkness and begin to shed some light onto the black spaces of silence, shame, ruminating faults of self-worth, and all of the things unspoken that need a voice. What I do when broken is not a space for singing sad songs and rehearsing old hurts, but it's about what authentic resilience looks like in the face of everyday challenges. No need for tissues. We all have issues. But now it's time to face the music and speak to the elephant in the room. Today is a day that the getting and understanding is priority. So if you're willing to hear some truth and don't mind saying ouch, then let's take this journey together. Get your flashlights out. It's about to get dark. It's a super late night. Super late night. And one thing that I can say is that this night is something else for me. It's not easy for me to talk about the things I'm going to talk about tonight. And while at the moment there aren't anyone in the chat, which I do love, so I could say what I need to say. But tonight is genuinely an open panel. And so we may have some people that come in tonight, say what they need to say what they want to say. But above all else, what we're doing tonight is talking about what I do when broken. Procrastination, Part 5. And what can I say about that? Is that it's all about when you can't get away. I see you, JD. Appreciate you. Greetings and salutations. Thank you for entering into this space. I appreciate your presence. I appreciate you coming out tonight. I don't expect to be before you long. But I will be, in fact, trying to talk about these things as much as I possibly can. Um, because at the end of the day, I know that this is as always, or at least it seems, we'll be talking about some very, very heavy topics. I see you, Dr. Ninja Turtle. Greetings and salutations. I see you say you're grading students. I appreciate that so much that you were able and willing to take the time to come in tonight and just hang out with us because I do know that while this is impromptu for the most part, I do like to do my best in presenting what I have been, I believe I've been given and downloaded on the inside. And so it's something I just wanted to touch on tonight as it pertains to um, what I do when broken. Boy, this series has been something else. Lisa J, I see you. I appreciate your presence. Um, I thank you for showing up in the chat. I also see you, Yolanda. You're in the chat as well as on the stage. I appreciate your presence as well. Don't
No,
think that I'm ignoring you because I'm trying to acknowledge the chatments. But
it's
I
okay.
most certainly thank you and appreciate you for being here as well. Um, and I see Trisha Nicole is in the house. Greetings and salutations to you as well. Welcome to the Chatmans. Um, we have an open panel, of course. All any of you all who decide that you want to come in and give your own commentary, because again, this is the procrastination series, and this is part 5. Um, procrastination in this procrastination series. It talks about when you can't get away. I have found myself in a lot of predicaments where I've done quite a few things. Um, I've done quite a few things in my in life, my space of time. Why is it every time I hit the mute button, it keep getting unmuted? Stop hitting that button. Um, there have been some times where um I've seen a lot. I've experienced a lot. Um, um, and because I've seen and experienced so much, it made me sit back and realize that I've had moments and times in my life, and sometimes still desire to run away. I've had moments where I run away literally. I've had I ran away when I was little, ran away from home, running away because I thought I was going to get a whooping. Which I still ended up getting a whooping, but it became a lot worse because I ran away from home. But I think about that as it pertains to um, the whole idea of when you can't get away. One of the first things I think about as it pertains to when I can't get away is the fact that you're going to always be you. You're going to always be with you cannot get away from yourself. You can't get away from the thoughts that you have, and there's nothing under the sun um that will allow you to escape from who you are and the things that sometimes can really and truly plague your mind, depending on different situations that you have in life. I saw Dr. Ninja Turtle said he ran away from home at 10 years old. Um, 5Gs, I see you. I appreciate you for coming in. Welcome to the Chapmans. Greetings and salutations. I most certainly appreciate your presence tonight. Um, but I'm talking about not being able to get away. You can't get away from your own thoughts. You can't get away from your feelings. And I've tried the whole thing of desiring to drink myself away, smoke myself away because I used to smoke weed religiously. I even at one point in time considered myself a weed connoisseur because I used to smoke so much. Um, of course, I've stopped, and it's been a long time since I've had anything, any substance of that nature. But I still think about how I was going through so much internally that I just wanted to get away from. And so I do take into consideration that we do have a panel guest, the seemingly co-host tonight. We have Yolanda that is on the stage. I appreciate your presence. Want to first ask you a question as it pertains to when you can't get away. What do you think about as it pertains to getting away from your thoughts or getting away from some of the things that you've experienced in life?
Oh my gosh. For me, I know when I go through stuff where I'm trying to escape my thoughts, I try to busy myself. I mean, I'll create stuff to do so I won't have to deal with it. Even being little and dealing with different traumas, my escape was being up in the wee hours of the morning, changing my whole room around just so I didn't have to sleep. So those were my runaways, my ways of escape during that time. Now I just try to busy myself. And sometimes if I catch it, I'll say, okay, now you just gonna have to deal with it. As hard as it is. So that's my coping mechanism, if you will. I don't know what happened, everyone, so please bear with us. We might have hit a little bit of technical difficulty.
I've been talking this whole time, didn't realize I was on mute.
Okay,
I'm sorry about
okay.
that.
Got to.
I'm back. I'm back. I'm back. I'm back in here.
All right.
Um, one thing that I can say as it pertains to getting away is the fact that just as you were talking about coping, there are so many things that come to mind as it pertains to trying to get away, trying to cope with how we feel about ourselves, trying to cope with the experiences that we may have had that may have been negative in our lives, trying to cope with sometimes loss, trying to cope with the idea of about to lose things or transition in life, things changing, trying to cope with change. Um, And sometimes we can fight those changes, and in the midst of fighting those changes, we kind of zone out sometimes. We can, and whether that is a substance that's causing us to zone out, or we just get to a place where I don't want to be involved in this, and you just check out because that's the only way you know how to cope is not to deal with it at all. Um, I've had my moments where I wish I can get away from the things that bother me. And not necessarily the way that some get away. But I can say that even recently, I've had moments where I'm like, I just want to get away from things and responsibilities, and I want to get away from accountability. I want to get away from this space of being vulnerable and talking about the things that actually bother me, and not just talking about instances and events of my life, but discussing how things have actually affected me in a way that I'm not accustomed to. And so a lot of times I want to get away from that. I want to get away from the idea of someone knowing what it feels like to be in a vulnerable space. Um, and so I think about how um, I've been in the place of using substances. Like I said, I was chiefing like Wahoo with my little Mary Jane, and I used to drink a little bit, and what my little bit might have been a lot to somebody else because I could easily drink a 750 milliliters of just about anything you sat in front of me, which is a fifth. For those who do not, I'm not familiar with the milliliters, but most certainly I would drink a fifth of just about anything and not phase me. Like I wouldn't be tipsy, wouldn't stagger, and so a lot of times I would run around with half gallons of things. I had it bad for running around with a half gallon of E&J White at one point in time, and running around with what else did I used to have back in the day? I might have a half gallon of Grey Goose. I may have, now I didn't like that bumpy fan. I wasn't no gin fan, but when it came to brandy and vodka, I would just had a bunch of it, would have it in abundance. Maybe even rum at times, but um, I also tried the thing of traveling, just getting up and leaving and going as far as a tank of gas could take me. I would get up and I would go, or that's if I was even driving, because sometimes yeah, I've even found myself in the past, because of course now the times are different now than what they used to be. I would up and leave with a complete stranger, and look up. I would be in another state. I would be in another city somewhere, far away from everyone and everything, and not knowing how I was going to get back, not knowing if I was going to get back. And so I ask you, Yolanda, um, what would you say would be was your biggest vice as it pertains to escapism and wanting to get away, or what did you try to do to get away from the things that bother you?
Ooh, for me, I would definitely I got heavily into drinking. I really did. That was something I did to put myself to sleep, you know. Oftentimes, drank till I just couldn't stand myself no more and just go to sleep. That was a big way of escape for me. That was one of the biggest things that I got myself into quite often. Um, till I got to the point where I would drink and lose control. And then
Mhm.
I didn't like that place. I hated feeling like something took me completely out of my character. I didn't like, it's like it took one hard time of seeing me completely go out of character, completely act a fool, completely just, be immersed in the drinking that I just didn't recognize myself. That caused me to say, hey, I don't want to do it in this manner. Then I just turned to just crazy relationships too, just diving into whatever, just to have the attention, just to not think about whatever I was dealing with. So, yeah, that was definitely something that I got into that I didn't end up really didn't not liking. for a minute.
And that I mean, again, I understand that because when it comes to when you're running away from something, a lot of times you don't even take into consideration how much damage you're doing because you're running away from a thing and how much you would have changed in trying to pursue anything other than dealing with what's going on in the inside, you know. And I knew that from especially at the time of my life where I was addicted to ecstasy because I was the ecstasy dealer for quite some time, a few years at least, um, which by my standards is a long time anyway. Just because it was one of those things that now I'm not fit to sit here and act like I was some kingpin or something like that because it wasn't even that kind of party. But it was one of those things where I sold enough to where it brought me a pretty penny. I can say that much. But it was one of those things of trying to keep up with that lifestyle of always trying to get money and running and chasing that money all the time. It took me away from the things that I was experiencing. Because at the time, I mean, really and truly, I had a hard time finding a job. You all have heard my story about being locked up 4 years, 5 months, 13 days for those who don't know. And being incarcerated had such an impact on my life until for a very long time. I was like trying to do all that I knew to do or all that I could do to have some kind of income and be able to pay bills and what have you. And so, I mean, and I did quite a bit of cutting hair and watching kids and washing cars and painting houses and just everything I could put my hands to. You know, if I was had to build something, if I had to cut a tree, I was willing to do it just to make sure that I wasn't broke because I didn't. One thing I didn't want to do is be out here with the armed robbery, which had me incarcerated in the first place. And so I'm like, before I go to try to steal anything, even if I wanted to be honorable in the things I was doing, but because I couldn't find a job, I was like, hey, I'm gonna have to do what I could do, the best that I knew how. And that's not me glorifying living like that or anything of that nature, but it's more so of a thing of just being honest about where I was at the time. And so I think about that as it relates to not only that, but the escapism and the coping mechanisms of relationships too. There have been so many times where I have been in a relationship only because it got me away from what I was dealing with internally, what I was dealing with sometimes at home. Things can be chaotic at times. I wasn't getting along with people all the time. I would bump heads with individuals, and so because I have a very very strong personality, and at any given moment it could cause quite a bit of friction. And so at the time, I was like, I got to get out of here. I mean, I had been put out of different places. Even I can even say that at one point in time, my mother put me out because I guess I could say I hadn't learned my lesson, for the most part. Maine, I see you. I appreciate you. Thank you for that shout out, sharing my channel. I appreciate you so much. As always, I appreciate your presence. I thank you for showing up tonight, hanging out with us. Greetings and salutations, and welcome to the chat, Miss. But I most certainly think about that as it pertains to you. Have you ever been in a situation where you got lost in a relationship or anything like that, Yolanda?
Oh my gosh. Yes, yes, just for the sake of filling a void, just for the sake of filling a void and not having a cope, I found myself um lying to my folks, tucking stuff in pocketbooks so they wouldn't know that I was trying to escape and go to another city, another part of the town,
Mhm.
so yeah, just out there wilding, just out wilding, trying not to deal with whatever was bothering me at that time and at that season. So yeah, that's I caught myself not found myself always sneaking out, then lying to my parents about, oh, I can't get home because my friend car broke down and be gone for 3 or 4 days. I would come up with all kinds of stories and things. So it was really a crazy, time in my life. And that time I was always trying to find a way to sneak out without letting them know I would be gone for days. Always had a story.
Yes, indeed. I ooh, Lord knows that there have been plenty of times where I would be so caught up in a relationship until I would lose myself. And when I say lose myself, I would be so inundated on the next move, where we were going next, who we were going to see, where we were going, what we were doing at the time, until I was not cognizant of how I hated where I was. I was sick and tired of the individual I was running around with, that I didn't want to be on the road all the time. I didn't want to be in the spaces that I was in. But because I was running from something, I just kept going. I was tethered to the idea of I would rather be away from everything that I was dealing with at home than to face the music of what was going on the inside of me, and just deal with that. And so I would always find myself in some kind of weird, strange, retarded looking, and I know we can't use the R word, oh well, type of situation, where it just seemed like instead of me progressing, I was regressing spiritually, regressing as it pertains to me becoming successful in life as a citizen, a law abiding citizen. Everything was just going down the drain, all because I'm like, I don't know how to get a grip on these things that I'm experiencing. I don't know how to cope with the places that I found myself internally, because one thing that I could say that being um after being incarcerated as a felon and spending so much time in prison. And while that may not be long, because I know it's a lot of people that say, um, oh well, that wasn't that long, because somebody did 10 calendars and somebody did 25 and all that. But if you stayed away from your family for humans to be born, um you know what, you've been gone for a minute, and a lot can happen in a short period of time. And with that being the case, I remember specifically when being locked up in the early 2000s. And I used to go to the mall. Used to go to the Mall of Memphis at one point in time, and went out there. That was the hangout place. That was the spot. That was the place to be when I was younger. And I remember getting incarcerated when I came out. I remember, I can't remember if it was my mother or somebody else. They took me around the area, and I remember this feels familiar to me. It feels like I know this area. It feels like this is something that this is an area that I know, but for whatever reason, it looks different to me. And I couldn't put my finger on it. And I was like, isn't it something supposed to be over there? And they pointed over to an area and they said, yeah, the mall used to be over there. I said, what mall? Because there was nothing there. It was just grass. There was no concrete. There was no parking lot. There was no rubble. There was no brick. There was no nothing. And it was like over there in that area where the grass was where the mall used to be. So that means not only was the dirt there, but the concrete, the lines, the lanes, the everything that was associated with that mall in the time that I was incarcerated was completely covered with grass, like literal growth, to the point where it was high grass at that, and it devastated me. It nearly shook me to my core, just because I was experiencing something that was so mind boggling. Like, I can't believe I've been gone so long that the place that used to be the hangout spot is nothing but a patch of grass now. And so, I ask you, Yolanda, had you ever been in one of those situations where you looked up and so much had changed because you had maybe, and I'm not saying you had to be incarcerated or anything of that nature, but had you ever been so wrapped up in a situation that when you looked up, everything was different?
Yes, most certainly. I had definitely went through went through that because I had moved, moved away from, my area. And at that point, I had been gone for a few years, and when I had some of the same experiences coming back, but like, wait a minute, thus and such used to be in that place, but it's no longer there because I was out just doing whatever I felt like doing and coming back, to where I originally grew up at. It just felt different. It felt weird, uncomfortable. Um, like, wait a minute, stuff is awkward now. Things I'm used to seeing has changed. So I can definitely identify with what you were saying, how you were incarcerated and coming back and seeing stuff. It was the same situation for me, not being incarcerated, but just moving away for a while and being in my own world, doing whatever, and coming back like, wow, like, kind of feeling a little detached, Uh, that's what I went through upon just moving back to the area that I grew up in. So I can identify with that.
Yeah, I definitely understand that whole thing. Dr. Ninja Turtle said, I moved to the East Coast from California over 30 years ago, and it has changed. The hood is gone, and high priced malls are there. And it's something else to see something that you identified with in one area, in one way. But then all of a sudden, everything that you know, everything that you've experienced, everything that you may have built a memory off of is now different, is now changed. And sometimes that could really affect you depending on the situation or what you've been experiencing, which takes me to my next point of how I wasn't necessarily running away from an event. And we all have bad things that happen to us. We all have we all have had negative experiences in life. I don't know nobody who's like, you know what, I've been happy my whole life. When I was born, I came with jolly and glee. I get that, but when you life keeps living, you keep living life, life starts to life on you, and all of the things that you experience, you start to find that, I'm getting into it with uh uh siblings, that's if you have any, you wish you had some, if you didn't have any, you feel alone. Sometimes you can be in a group of people and still feel alone. You could be experiencing things and that leaves you feeling alone. You can experience betrayal from friends and that leaves you feeling the feeling of being alone in your experience. And then there's the thing of you have bad intimate relationships with people, and that leaves you in a place where it's negative in nature, and you can feel alone and feel angry and upset about the fact that you feel betrayed even in those spaces, or feel abandoned by people. They were there and then all of a sudden they walked away from you. And one thing I can say that as it pertains to running away, sometimes we get to one of those spaces where I don't want to feel this anymore. I don't want to feel this pain. I don't want to be frustrated any longer. I don't want to be in a space where everything seems to be going downhill. I don't want this for myself anymore. And with that being the case, um, it made me realize that it just wasn't the events that I was running away from. It was me. I was running away from me. I was running away from my past. The things that I had done, the decisions that I had made, even all the way down to my decisions on who I decided to hang around, who I decided to give space to, who I decided to invest into, and how those investments were made. It was me that I was running from. I was running from my past and running from the things that had me bound mentally. bound spiritually, running from things that had me in a space where I didn't like me anymore because I felt like my life was out of control. I felt like I couldn't get a grip on things to the point where I could feel like I was breathing again. It was me. It was just me. Um, do you think that you've come to that place where you feel like you've had a moment of clarity, feeling like it's not, mother, brother, sister, father, mother, or it's not a pastor, it's not a friend, it's not a lover, it's nobody, it's me that I want to get away from. Have you ever experienced that before, Yolanda?
Most definitely, most definitely. It so much so until I could be in a mirror, look in a mirror, and I didn't even like what I saw in me, and that was something that kind of shook me, looking at myself in a mirror and not even recognizing it. I had got to a point where I just hated to see myself
Hmm.
in a mirror, and that really uh kind of just gripped me like, oh my God, I don't like looking at myself, or going through periods where, because I felt like I didn't like myself, I was like, I wish I could just wash this off of me. I don't like this feeling, and I couldn't do that either.
Hmm.
So that was like a wake up call for me. I'm like, I don't like this person that I see. I don't
Hmm.
recognize this person. It was ugly to me, and that
Hmm.
was a hard place to deal with.
Yeah. Um, Lord knows that with the decisions that I've made in the past, the ways that I hurt people, because of how I was, because of the lifestyle that I was living, um, I didn't care. And I remember not just not caring about other people. Matter of fact, I remember seemingly feeling like I cared more about other people than I did myself. But then that didn't translate very well because I didn't care about people either because I didn't care about myself. And I just remember doing things to people back at that time. Um, pulling out the pew pew and telling, well, I can't go into all of the details, but I lived that life of the real outside life, not just stepping out to get a mane or something. I'm talking about that real outside, living real raggedy, out here in these streets being no good. Um, and I just remember people being in fear when I came around, just because I would do something, I would be standing there and laughing and having a good time and cracking jokes. Then next thing I know, I would pull out my pew pew and somebody would be laying on the ground, and I'm not saying that I was pulling the trigger, but what I am saying is, everybody's like running and ducking and trying to figure out who I'm angry with at this point, and what did they do? And I had others that were my friends like, don't do it, it ain't worth it. When I'm just like, I just was out of my head and in a totally different space at the time where I was so dangerous to so many people and even to myself because I didn't want to be here. I was really in a space where my life could have been taken just as easy as anyone else. And coming to that space where you don't like you anymore sometimes can be a very dangerous place to be in, to be honest. When you don't like you, you're waiting for somebody to take you out. When you don't like you, you're hoping that things end and you really don't care how it does. I didn't have any value. I didn't see any value as it pertained to my own life. I remember walking around not fearing um, unalivement, mainly because I didn't want to be here. I didn't care about being here. I didn't care if I left or how I left. And I just, which ended up at some point, not that particular time because I was older, but I remember being very young. I think I was somewhere around 14 or 15 years old, might have been about 15 years old. I remember trying to commit unalivement and personal unalivement with taking 50 Tylenol and chasing it with pine sol, and had to be on the unalivement floor at the hospital, all because I was trying to escape, all because I didn't like who I saw in the mirror, all because, and this was when I was young. This was before going to prison. This was before being incarcerated for plus years. This was before all of the chaos, that I was committing as it pertained to other people's lives. And it was like, what am I here for? And I had that at a very young age. And so I just remember that when it came to those times and those spaces in my life, um, wow. I see you, Dr. Ninja Turtle said that's how I ended up in the homeless shelter. Whew. Yeah. Oh. But it's those places that when you hit rock bottom, and as much as you realize this is not the place that I want to be, this is not the place I expected to land. And sometimes being in those spaces, depending on where you are internally, um, those places can either be a starting point or it can trigger another downward spiral in your life, you know. And I think about that, I'm like, I survived the trying to do the self unalivement only to later on get into situations where I could be taken out of here. Um, and I think about that, how reckless I was in my behavior. And so, but the thing about it was, I didn't have the courage to do it, what they would call do it right. I didn't have the courage to go through with every plan as it pertained to um, trying to take my own life. But if it's one thing that I can say is, there was purpose in me still being here. There was purpose in me being able to survive as long as I did, regardless to the things that I was doing to other people. Um, Greetings and salutations, Corey's World. I see you. I appreciate your presence here. Yes, this is impromptu, and you know what? For the first time, I ain't all the way at the end. I won't be here before you long, but I'm not all the way at the end. So I'm glad you was able to squeeze in here, Corey. Welcome to the Chapmans. Mom of three, I see you. So glad to see you in the space. And the if y'all decide that y'all want to come up and say something, by all means do so. Welcome to the Chapmans, Mom of three. I appreciate you ladies for coming in and sharing this space with us as we try to navigate through one of these heavier subjects, as I like to call it, because we're talking about what happens when you want to run away, when you can't get away, rather. Um, and so back to what I was saying about running from who I was, running from the things that I saw in myself that I didn't like, running from my past and the decisions that I had made. The second thing I had was found myself running from was I was running from my future. There was something developing on the inside of me that I recognized and that people would speak to. But because they could see it, and I'm like, I don't know how I'm going to get there, I try to ignore it. There were people that saw greatness in me. There were people that saw me doing what I'm doing now. While on to one scale, somebody might not look at this and say that that don't seem that great. You just on YouTube creating content, just talking about your life, and I'm like, but I'm alive. There's some greatness there, especially with some of the things that I tried to do to not be here. Especially with some of the life that I was living that could have taken me out. Um, And so I think about that as it pertains to when others were able to see and speak to um, who I would become or who I could become. And it took me a long time to believe it. Yolanda, I want to ask you, since you're up here, um, I want to ask you, have you ever felt like there's no way you're going to be able to get past where you are and maybe try to dismiss the thought of things getting better?
Absolutely. I felt like there was no hope for myself because I was just kind of so angry. And I think one of the things that made me feel like that too was when my roommate was taking advantage and she stole money and she had a gun. And I remember taking that gun.
Pew pew.
I mean, I'm sorry, the pew pew. I apologize. The pew
You
pew
good.
and
Hmm.
putting it to her head, you know. And I
Hmm.
remember being so angry, I was just laughing. Just I knew I had crossed over to a point of just pure anger and rage. Um, and I remember being surrounded by the other people saying, like, "Hey, it's not worth it. Why would you let somebody do this?" You know. And that was kind of a pivotal point. I was like, it don't matter no more. I just don't care. You know what I'm saying? My life is don't nobody care about me. You know what I mean? I'm out here like far from home. Um, Nothing matters anymore. And that was another moment that kind of shook me like, come on, it's you know what I'm saying? I just didn't feel like my
Hmm.
life mattered, you know, and I was ready to risk it all in that moment.
Hmm. Um, what do you think, or do you recall people being able to see the good in you past what your experiences were at that time?
Yes, and it used to irritate the heck out of me. Um, they'd be like, "Why are you even here? Why are you even in this situation? You don't even belong here. You don't fit. You're out of place. You look just out of place." And this wasn't just grown people. This was teenagers. I'm talking about 15, 16 years old, and my little 20 plus years old at the time. And they, I would always, they would always say, just, this ain't even you, man. Just, and I would run into people that would say that a lot. And I would be like, just flabbergasted. I more than I realized, I would stick out like a sore thumb, you know. I'm like, that's not your character. Like, why are you carrying on like this? This don't even fit you. And it would really, really irritate me. I'm like, why me? Why I gotta stick out, like a sore thumb and getting compliments when I felt like I was at some of my lowest points in my life. It was crazy to me. I would always get picked out in every situation. Like, why are you drinking that? Like, why are you acting like that? Why are you cussing and carrying on? This, that, and the third. I was just like, why am I being noticed when I don't want to be? So, yeah, absolutely.
And I get that. Especially, again, we're talking about coping and running away from things and I've been at that place where I was irritated, because again, I was in the streets for quite some time. Um out there just doing whatever. And I remember, um, I can remember times where I would be riding down the street and stop at a red light, and someone would tell me, something about God, concerning my life, and I remember other times where I even remember the time that I was incarcerated and I hadn't, well, of course, I hadn't left yet because I was still there. But it was one of those situations where a young lady was like, "You don't belong here." And I was like, "What?" She said, "You're one of those ones that when you leave, we'll never see you again." And I remember telling her, I said, "You'll see me again. It just won't be out. I just won't be in handcuffs." And I got an opportunity to later on go back and talk to the women there later on, after I had gotten out, which was something that had not been done before, where a former inmate went back to the same place that they had been incarcerated. And so I think about things like that. That at the time when it was spoken to me, I was like, "Shawty, you crazy? You must have lost all your mind. Why would you say that I don't belong here?" And all I could think about was everything that I did. All I could think about was everything I hadn't gotten caught doing, or all of the things that at any given time, could pop up in my life. And then I would be right back into that space. And I remember living with a sense of fear at some point because I didn't like the idea of being incarcerated. I didn't like being locked up, didn't want to be locked up. And for a good little while, I was scared of the police for that very reason. Um, And so I think about things as it pertains to running from that sense of you're going to be something, running from that sense of something is changing on the inside. Some things that I thought weren't worth anything actually have value, and they didn't go away. Even though I was doing all of what I was doing, the value that was of my life, the value of being able to have conversations, the value that came from um, so many things that I had been taught and so many things I had learned. It didn't go away, but it stayed with me. But I just couldn't see the avenue in which I would be able to take to get there. And so I lived in that space of being frustrated with my past and not wanting to deal with I'm being called to a better future. Um, Another thing that I was running from is who I was pretending to be. This sounds a little weird because it's like, how was you running from who you were pretending to be? I was pretending to be happy. I was pretending that I didn't know that I was like my life was changing internally and my expression was different from how I really who I really was. There was what they call a cognitive dissonance that was going on in my life where I'm like what I'm presenting versus what is going on within me, there is a clash. um there was this thing of um I don't want to be known for certain things. I don't want people to know who I was. And so it was a thing of kind of living what I would consider a double life where I could still go to church and still carjack. I could still sing in the choir, but then I'm gonna sell a little dope. And while I didn't want to be in that space, and there was a struggle because I'm like, this is where I want to be, but I don't know how to get there. This is what I desire. But then at the same time, while I'm out there in the streets doing what I'm doing, I don't want to be known for being the church girl. I don't want to be known for being the one, that know all the scriptures. But for whatever reason or another, um I found myself hating this individual I had become because I didn't know how to let go of one and hold on to the other at the same time. And so it left me conflicted in a lot of ways. It left me wondering, how did I manage to keep doing what I'm doing and learning the things that I'm learning and knowing the things that I know, but keep staying in the same place in my personal life. And I didn't want that. But I didn't want anybody to know that that was what was bothering me when I was out there in the street and I was mean as a rattlesnake because I didn't want to do what I was doing. I didn't want to be who I didn't want to be who I was presenting to people. But at the same time, I was running away from the thing that I felt like was the most authentic part of me. And I don't know if anybody's ever experienced that um where you feel like this is not who I am. This is just what I do. This is not who I am. This is just something I have this habit, but I'm really a person of that desires cleanness. I have these issues, but I'm a person who desires to live a life of morality, live a life that maybe even go so far as to say live a life that was pleasing to God. There were things that I didn't know how to handle because I was like, I'm in this space of wanting to get away from the streets, but every time I go somewhere, I'm always being reminded of how they see street on me. But then when I leave the church, the street is reminding me how much they see church on me. And so I'm like, I'm running from space to space, uncomfortable in every space that I go to because I don't fit in. So I was running from everything. I was running from the false elements that I had in the church because I was deeply um involved in as many aspects as I could. But at the same time, I was deeply involved in street life and didn't know how to separate the two because it was all a part of who I had become over time. But I didn't want to be any of those things, especially not together. And so I think about how you were talking about how you didn't like who you were and people would be speaking to you um and how it would bother you when someone could be able to see something in you that you didn't know how to even articulate, or you didn't even know what to do about what they saw. Home by the Trish, I see you. I appreciate your presence being here. Thanks for hanging out with us. Greetings and salutations. We won't be before you too much longer. But I appreciate you coming in anyway to support. Thank you. Most certainly welcome you to the Chapmans. Um, Yolanda, what do you think about that whole thing of feeling like you can't get to that space? Or have you even experienced that where you felt like I want to do something different, but I don't know how to get there? But with me sticking out like a sore thumb in every arena, in every area that, like you were just talking about a minute ago, how did that make you feel, feeling like I'm not where I want to be, but I'm not exactly where I used to be? But I don't know how not to be where I used to be because parts of where I used to be is still here. What do you say to that?
Whew. Um. mm, wow. I felt. I'm like, oh my gosh, this is a tough one. Um. It's like sinking and nobody saving me. That's what it made
Mm,
me. That's what it made me feel like. It's
mm,
like
mm,
I'm screaming for somebody to pull me up, but
mm,
everybody is walking past me as they're seeing me sink. And it made me more frustrated because for me, I was the sheltered kid trying to dabble in the streets looking crazy
Mhm.
because I was green. It's grass. And
Mhm.
so, um, and then being in church, you know, it's that's 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 the deacon's daughter, you know, but I was just like, nobody cares about me, even in the church. That's what it felt like.
Mhm.
I was just like, you know, I'm screaming, but ain't nobody hearing me.
Mhm.
That's what it felt like for me on a regular basis. You know, sitting in church, being involved, but feeling like a stranger. You know,
Mhm.
that's what it was like for me.
Mhm. I most certainly can identify with that. Oh my goodness, I can identify with that. So, homebody Trish said, recognize the space you are in and understand forward movement is not a linear process. When I tell you that having grace for yourself, um, being in the space where you can say, I'm growing, even if I can't see it, even if it looks like my growth is stagnant, even if it seems like I done took 2 steps back, I'm still growing. It's no different than walking. Nobody expects a baby who just learned how to take 2 steps to break out running. If they do break out running, you're scared because they might bust their head wide open depending on where they land, where they fall. And just because they go back to crawling after taking those 2 steps or those 3 steps does not mean that they haven't started walking. Um, Queen's Alchemy. It is always a blessing to see you, for you to show up like you do, in support. Greetings and salutations. Welcome to the Chatmans. We won't be before you long because we're about to wrap this thing up. But I most certainly want to acknowledge your presence and let you know how much I appreciate. Um, whew, exactly. Even if it's uncomfortable, I know that's right. Home by the trees. Um, and so just being in that space of at least recognizing that you need help, recognizing that I'm in quicksand. And while when I got over here, I knew that it was quicksand, I didn't know that I wasn't going to be able to pull myself out. I'm sinking, but I'm not sinking so fast where people feel like it's an emergency because it's a slow descent. And the more I move into space, the more I feel like I'm sinking. Um, a brother of a certain age, good morning, good evening, good afternoon, and possibly in a few minutes, good night. We appreciate your presence. So glad that you're here with us. Appreciate your support. Greetings and salutations. Welcome to the chat as we are about to wrap this thing up. But I do want to say, the, to speak to what you were saying as it pertains to watching people walk past, feeling like people are walking past you and they see you in trouble, but they just keep going. Um, and sometimes that is a thing where people can see you in trouble and they walk away from you, mainly because they don't have the capacity to help you. And that was a hard pill for me to swallow my own self, is the whole understanding of just because they in church don't mean that they can help you. And that goes from the preacher in the pulpit all the way down to the usher in front of the door. Everybody does not have the capacity to help you when you're sinking. Um, Queen's Alchemist said, I appreciate the platform that you hold here. My sister is definitely a place of expression and an opportunity to reflect. Thank you so much, Queen's Alchemy. I appreciate that. And yes, I have to admit the fact that it took me coming to a place where I was okay if nobody came to save me. If no one was able to come and rescue me, that was okay. Now it took me a while to get to that place, but it was okay. Um, the last thing that I want to touch on, uh, pause. The last thing I want to discuss is the fact that I was running from the changes in me. I was running from the changes in me. I saw difference taking place and it was uncomfortable. I saw how I could feel how the places that I had been that I used to not care about, I cared about now where I was. I cared about the spaces that I was in. I cared about the company that I kept. I cared about the things that I thought and the things that I said. And it was those places that sometimes would be burdensome to know that these things are happening inwardly, but nothing on the outside has changed yet. And so sometimes I found myself running away from or attempting to run away from the fact that I'm about to lose everything around me. And I tried to hold on for dear life. That's what I mean by running from the changes in me. Hello, coffee. I see you. We about to wrap things up, but I appreciate your presence. Appreciate you coming here and sharing this space with us. Greetings and salutations. Welcome to the Chapmans. Um, but if it's one thing that I could say as it pertains to that running from the changes in me, the running from the changes in me meant that as I changed, the environment was going to see me different. And the things and the people and the places that I was holding on to, I couldn't because I no longer was the person on the inside that fit into the space that I was in any longer. And so it meant that things had to change. That meant that people had to walk away because they were no longer comfortable with who I was becoming. That meant that the places that I was in, it used to be a time where the cigarette smoke didn't bother me. Now it does. And I don't want to be around it because my eyes burn. I used to smoke cigarettes, 2 packs a day, Newport 100s in a box. But when things began to change on the inside, I couldn't tolerate the smoke anymore. There was a time where let's pour it up. I couldn't pour up anymore. It irritated me. I didn't want to be in that space anymore with the people laughing and sweating and puking everywhere. It wasn't funny to me anymore when they was talking loud and confessing undying love with liquor on their breath and beer bellies and sweat. I didn't want that anymore because I was changing on the inside. So now the people that was saying, "Hey, she in here with the half gallons and come on, let's pour up this pint," is now saying, "If you was gonna come and rain on our parade, you could have stayed at home." Now they looking at me like I'm being judgmental because I don't want anything to drink. Even though I wasn't judging them for what they were doing, I just didn't want it anymore. And so Queen's Alchemist said, I used to smoke too. Sis, almost a pack a day. Newport 100 lights in a box. I'm glad that we were able to say used to. I know that's right. Unique. So glad to see you. Appreciate your presence being here. Welcome and uh greetings and salutations and welcome to the Chapmans. We're about to wrap this thing up. But if you would, those of you all who are just coming into the situation, by all means, be kind and rewind. Dr. Ninja Turtle said Marlboro menthol. You see what I'm saying? You know, hey, I ain't gonna put all your business out there, but somebody said they don't smoke them cigarettes, but they smoke a little tree every now and then. You know, a little trees. Um, home by the trees. How did y'all stop cold turkey? If I'm honest about it, God did it for me. I asked him to take away the desire. I did. Um, Not only that, it was the thing of I wanted my whole life to be different. It wasn't just the cigarettes. I also wanted peace. Because without peace, I was going to continue to keep smoking. I didn't have peace inwardly. And my first thing was my nerves bad. I stayed talking about my nerves bad. I need a cigarette. I got into it with my sister one time. She said, "You nicking." That was her favorite thing to say about me because she was talking about I was having a nicotine fit. You nicking. You acting crazy. You nicking. I wish you go and get a square. You nicking. I'm like, will you going on with that? But at some point, I was like, I don't want that anymore. I don't want my clothes smelling like smoke. I actually want to smell good. And I ain't saying that everybody walk around smelling funky, but you know it's a big difference between a person that smokes versus a person that doesn't. Um, Unique said, I just don't like that smell of cigarettes stay on you even when you're not smoking them. Absolutely, it does. You know, you can wash your clothes 100,000 times, they still gonna smell like it. Honestly, quitting the cigarettes started the same way I quit eating meat. My intuition led me to it, and it just happened. I shared that story earlier. I'll tell you, when there are changes that come into your life, it's some things that just go with it. When you change internally, the things that are attached to those changes change with it. I just asked God to come in and start changing. I started submitting to those changes because I knew it was coming anyway, eventually at some point. I just didn't know that me letting go of my past and not allowing it to rule me, not allowing it to make me feel a way about myself, allowed me to have a little more peace. Me not running away from the future that I saw coming to me that was going to cost me the friendships that I had for a long time, many, many years, well over a decade. Those things changed and I had to be okay with it. And the more okay I was with those things changing, the more peace I had. And the more peace I had, the less I needed something to help me have peace. And so it's those things that come into our lives that we're like, the more we let go and the more we stop running from the changes that are coming, we start seeing them come in naturally, come in easily. And I didn't need a nicotine patch. I didn't need no Nicorette gum. I didn't have to do a 12-step program to quit drinking. I just wanted something different and was willing to, by any means necessary, have that difference in my life. That's amazing because 2 packs a day is intense to stop. Absolutely. And I was smoking like a chimney. Oh, I was smoking like a chimney. When I got through it, before I got through with one cigarette, I was lighting another one. Face all black from smoking, lips purple from because hey, I was on it. But when it stopped, when it all stopped, I was like, I breathe differently now. And it's those things that I'm appreciative of because I don't have to lean on them to make me feel better anymore. Dr. Ninja Turtle said, never let your past determine your future, is my channel catchphrase. That's it. Queen Zekima said, nope, just did it. Um, Yolanda, you still there?
Yes, absolutely. I am definitely still here. For me too, I just got to the point where I was like, I don't want to do this no more. Um, with the drinking and stuff. And I just made sure that even if I had to get a snack for myself or the kids, I wouldn't go in the liquor stores, anywhere that sold liquor. I would stay far away from there. And if people were drinking, I would dismiss myself. That's how I ended up kind of just weaning myself. I just kind of asked God for the strength to do it. And one day, one step at a time, I just tried to stay as far away from the very appearance of it as I possibly could. And I just thank God that I didn't, I've had friends that I've supported that have gone through AA and things like that. But I just thank God for the strength to be able to walk away, on my own, so to speak, not without the help of God, of course.
Hey, like I said, I don't expect everybody to have the same faith. I don't have it expect everyone to have the same set of beliefs. But one thing I can say is that everyone can change if you want. And if you desire to, it'll come if you want it bad enough. Um, I just know that as it pertains to running from the changes in me, I don't want to run anymore. I don't want to run away from the things that have been holding me back, keeping me in a state that I don't want to be in. I don't want to keep running from the experience of vulnerability. This conversation was not easy for me. I could tell you that right now. No different than it wasn't easy for me to quit smoking. I had an attitude that was out this world for a good little while, but it eventually went away. um, when I quit ecstasy, I was addicted to ecstasy because, like I said, I was selling it and I sold it for a few years. When I was addicted to ecstasy, um, I remember coming to a point where I couldn't find anymore. And I was used to making a lot of money. And so I was ready to re up and couldn't find it. It was a drought. And I remember my body had me in such of a rage. I was feeling sick to my stomach because I couldn't find them. Um, and that's when I realized I'm like, oh, I'm addicted for real. Like I'm over here feeling like I'm jonked out here. And so I never forget this. I was at my mother's house and I laid on her couch for 3 days. Only time I got up was to go to the restroom or to take a shower. I would spend like maybe a few hours in the tub and get up and lay back down. And I did that for 3 days straight in a ball. There were other people. Now, let me tell you about this addiction because I'm saying this because of change. I was taking at the time enough where it could have killed me, but it didn't. At the time when I was selling ecstasy, this was during the time where on the news, one pill was taking people's lives. It was taking them away from here. People was passing away from one. I was taking 13 a day. And with that being the case, I had built such a tolerance until I was taking them to stay awake, taking them to for functionality, taking them to knock the edge off because I would be irritable without them. But that was when I recognized, oh, I'm addicted. I can't go without these. And so when it came to that ecstasy, and I had to lay down on my mother's couch, it was told to me later on that what you did could have killed you. Laying on that couch like that, you could have passed away because other people have to be weaned off the thing that you just laid down and went cold turkey about. I was determined to the point where I didn't care. I just wanted what I wanted and went after it. By the third day, from that day to this one, I've never had another one in my life. Not one. And I went from taking 13 a day to nothing within 3 days. And really from the first day, because I didn't take any more after that. I think about these things and I consider how there are so many people that can be caught up in the things that they're running away from, the things that they're trying to get away from inwardly. Because we can all get out of a bad marriage. We can, oh, yes, ma'am, that was God. Absolutely. But it's one of those things where when you're running away from the changes that you have on the inside and you're willing to stop running, the things that's supposed to catch up with you, the blessings, the peace, the joy, the loosening of those things that had you bound. And when I say that, had you bound to anger, had you bound to rage, had you bound to unforgiveness, had you bound to hating yourself and hating other people. When you come to one of those places where you're willing to stop running from the things that want to catch up with you, you get to see what life really is about. Because everything is not about everything that pops up on the news. Everything is not about what the president is doing, but it's more so about being willing to stop procrastinating and deal with the things that you can get away with. Brooklyn Beauty, I see you. I quit the drink. Cheers to that, honey. Thank you for coming. I most certainly am at the end. If you would be kind to rewind, but I most certainly have appreciated your presence. I welcome you to the Chapman's greetings and salutations. Your presence is most certainly felt and important in this space. Thank you. Um, do you have any last thoughts, Yolanda, before we get out of here?
I'm just grateful that I pushed my way and came on in. This was definitely not easy, but I am so grateful that I was here tonight, and I'm grateful for those that shared in the chat. Um, I'm just looking forward to the next one. I really am.
Let the people know who you are, because I should have said this a long time ago.
It's
Tell the
okay.
people what your channel is. Tell them what your name is, and let them know a little something about where you're coming from.
Yes. The name of my channel is Brit Family Fun. People either call me Brit or Yolanda. Either it's fine. I have a lifestyle channel. I work out in a segment where I call Get Fit with Brit and chat. And in between there, I do conversations with Brit. I also do cooking with Brit. So I do go live on occasion and cook in the kitchen as well. So I appreciate you giving me the opportunity to share a little bit about my channel. Also, my children do on occasion make cameos, appearances in the midst of it. That's why I affectionately call it Brit Family Fun.
Well, you have heard it here. Thank you all for showing up tonight. I didn't expect to see as many of you all who did show up. For those of you all who have been in the bushes just listening, my mama be one of them bush watchers, so I have to acknowledge her a little bit because sometimes I be ignoring the people in the bush, but they be important too. I can't say my mama in the bushes ain't important, so I must acknowledge her too. So, mom, while you're listening over there, hi, mom. Beyond that, I just wanted to say thank you all for taking the time to listen. I hope that you all are able to find the space of um, vulnerability, transparency, and being able to just face, um, take a good look in the mirror at yourself and be willing to be honest with yourself. Um, Even if you aren't at a place where you can discuss it with other people. Take the time out. Take the time out to discover who you are or who you want to be. Take the time to allow yourself the space to grow and stop running from who you really are, but allow the greatness to come forth so you can see all the blessings that are due to you. I appreciate all of you all for coming out. And as I say always, God bless you and good night.
Good night. Good night, everyone.